Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome back to another live stream here on Celtics Digest. We have two lucky guests here with us today from How About Them Celtics, and we are ecstatic to have them over here on the channel today. First, we have Jack Simone, writer for previously for Celtics blog, writer for Hardwood Houdini, used to do some work for the Bulls Wire, the Spurs Wire, Celtics Wire, on here as well, Celtics beat reporter, and Sam LaFrance, also on How About Them Celtics, writer for Celtics blog. Boys, how you guys doing today? Happy to have you guys on.
Good. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it. We're excited.
It's a great day. It's Thursday. It's essentially my Friday. I'm thrilled. I couldn't be more thrilled.
I'm glad. Well, we're going to break down and get into some great Celtics basketball, and I can't wait to discuss it with you guys because I've seen you guys been cooking it up on How About Them Celtics, obviously writing your guys' articles. You guys are obviously tapped in. Jack, obviously being at the practices and doing all that type of stuff. And for Celtics Digest people, unfortunately, we don't have those resources. We're not able to be at those practices. To start off the live stream, I wanted to go a little bit into detail about those practices. So we're going to start off by looking at some Jack's thoughts from the preseason so far, from being at the practice. And Jack, you were there obviously before they went to Abu Dhabi, after they went to Abu Dhabi. Is there any changes that you've seen since those switches? I know that they just had their first practice today, and what have you really seen so far?
Yeah, today was the first day back at the facility for media. I think I don't think it's the first day the Celtics have practiced. I think they've been practicing all week, but it's the first day we got to go back and talk to them. We talked to Joe today, Tatum today, Jay Scrubb today. It was the first time he spoke since he signed with the team. This was actually his first practice today since he signed with the team because he was still in the recovery process, and so this was the first time he actually got to practice. I think the energy's kind of just before and after, just trying like they didn't win last season. Joe Mazzulla was doing everything he can to say, hey, we're not defending the title. We're not, entitled to, maintain it. We have to go chase another one. It's like its own individual season. And everything you've heard out of training camp and preseason so far is this is the hardest training camp ever. Everyone's going 100%. Like no one's resting on their laurels. No one's falling into the trap of, the championship hangover. That's not a thing with this team that we've seen so far. Maybe you see a little regular season relaxation heading into the year, but so far in training camp, it's been anything but that, which is a good thing. Chase Rob obviously got out there today. You saw him at the Airbrook Center a little bit before Abu Dhabi. Obviously wasn't signed to the team, but he had been around the team. He told us today that he had been in contact with the team since he's tore his ACL last summer. And so that was sort of a foregone conclusion that this is where he wanted to be. He knew he always wanted to be with the Celtics during his injury. And then other than that, it's just been kind of same old, same old. Everyone's practicing, everyone's going hard. And it just feels like they're in a really good spot heading into season after winning the title.
I think so too. Sam, you got any comments, anything that you've noticed from the preseason so far? I know you're not there at the facility, but anything that Jack's kind of told you or talked about that's kind of touched base?
Just that, they seem like they're really engaged. I think the Lonnie Walker stuff you mentioned to Jack, where he's like, this is the hardest training camp I've ever been at, and he's thrilled to be there. I mean, he's in an unfortunate spot where he's kind of getting the shaft from the CBA and isn't really going to have a guaranteed deal anywhere, so he has to earn it. But the enthusiasm coming from him, it's bleeding down from the guys that are coming back from last year, all of the championship guys. And as Jay Scrubb mentioned, as you talked about, Jack, like that motivated him. The guy tore his ACL at training camp last year after earning a two-way deal. That's a devastating thing for a guy that's on the fringe of making his dream come true. And he's able to work his way back, re-earn a spot, even though it's an Exhibit 10 with the Celtics, and he cites the championship team as motivation. He wanted to get back out there and be a part of what was happening. And for that to be the mindset shared by everybody is a really great sign going into the season, especially when you consider the Knicks got better, the Sixers got better, and the Celtics are coming in, even though they won a championship, with a chip on their shoulder somehow. It's incredible.
And I think the one part that people think to forget about with this Celtics team when kind of thinking about them getting better is they say like they brought everybody back. They look at the Knicks, they look at the Sixers, but the players on the Celtics are only getting better as well. Like Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're only growing as superstars. You have young players like Baylor Scheierman, Sam Hauser, Payton Pritchard, Jaden Springer, who hasn't really gotten that much of ample opportunity with this squad, who I think will get more of an opportunity this year with this team. Like those guys have to continue to grow and kind of fill in those roles, I guess, or kind of replace and kind of step up for when they run into those Knicks or those Celtics or some of those other top tier teams.
Definitely. I feel like, like you mentioned, everyone in the Celtics roster is getting better. You look at Jrue Holiday and Al Horford, and I feel like some people assume like, oh, this team's getting older, it's whatever. But Tatum's 26, Jaylen Brown's 27. These guys are I would say right in the prime of their career, beginning the prime of their careers. And so expecting them to plateau out now doesn't really make a ton of sense. Even Derrick White, like he's 29, so he's a bit older, but he was a late bloomer, right? He was never a good shooter when he was in San Antonio. He never had this much freedom, this much, people around him building up that confidence. Not that San Antonio doesn't do that, but just that all you've heard since he joined the Celtics 2 years ago is shoot the ball more, be more aggressive, do more stuff for us on the offensive end. And I feel like he is also just sort of entering the prime of his career, even though he's a little bit older, because he's just gotten to a new opportunity. And this is only going to be his fourth year with the Celtics, or third full season, fourth, like, I guess if you include the year he got traded. But, and then that doesn't even account for guys like Sam Hauser and Payton Pritchard, who are 26 themselves, but have only been in the league for a few years and, are getting more and more opportunities steadily. That doesn't include Jordan Walsh, who Joe Mazzulla said he was confident in and said he's looked good so far. I saw Jay King ask about him a couple times in practice today, and Joe Mazzulla was like, "Yeah, I mean, he was asked like, will he spend time in Maine this year with Boston? He said, whatever the season calls for it. So it sounds like Jordan Walsh is not like a definite to just only be up in Maine. So we could see some of him. Same thing with Jaden Springer, who's 22, I think now. Like they have enough young guys, and Xavier Tillman and Kada and all these guys who they might be a little bit older in terms of their age, but they are young in terms of experience. And so expecting this team to decline now, like we've seen with past championship teams, like the older Warriors in 22, or even the Bucks who have run into injury issues since then, like that's just not the case with this Celtics team. And so I think there's a lot more room for improvement than people realize, despite the fact that they won it all last year.
Yeah, they've set themselves up really well, especially like you don't even have to think of it in terms of this season, but as the years go on, you're hoping the plan is right that Jordan Walsh is going to continue to grow. And we mentioned that he looks much better in the preseason than he did in Vegas. Jack and I were there, and he didn't look good. He didn't look confident. He looked like he was in his own head, and it was a big opportunity for him to prove himself when everybody had expectations for him, and it just didn't really work out. Scheierman's almost fallen into that same trap, right? Where it's like, oh wow, we're all excited about this guy. He's the first round pick Brad Stevens has made, and he looked pretty good in summer league. He got shaky at times and looked like he was in his head. And the first two preseason appearances have looked very similar to that. Like shots are hitting the top of the backboard, he's airballing, but ultimately it doesn't matter. No one's going to remember it in a year, especially if he really gets some kind of progress made. He's already put on a bunch of muscle since joining the team. He's clearly willing to work to be a part of the Celtics, and having guys that are new pieces to build off of as you try and continue to keep your team towards the top of the league is something that Brad Stevens has really preached right when the draft happened, right after he talked to all the media at the Albrecht Center. And he said, we're building a sustainable team. And Scheierman, as well as Anton Watson, are a big part of that. And so are Jordan Walsh and hopefully Springer. That's my guy. I don't know if he's going to get extended or not this summer, but who wouldn't love to see him around?
I mean, I would love to see Springer around. I agree with you, Sam. I think he has a lot of versatility. And one game that I really remember that I always bring up on my channel about Springer kind of getting into him is I think it was versus Chicago. And it was when Chicago was going on this like huge run at the end of like the halftime or maybe third quarter. And they inserted Springer right away, put him on DeMar DeRozan. He got an instant stop and was just like putting on that like great defense and like attack of defense. And that's something that I think is like, obviously we have Holiday, obviously we have Derrick White. Like there are good defenders in that guard position, but having that just extra piece in Springer off the bench, I think is just like huge. And just like his like crazy, like I don't want to say like sporadic, but just like how like he's always like ready to go and just like ready to attack, I think is just like a trait that is good for this Boston Celtics team.
Oh, agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about him. That's a great game you picked. Like that was really one that caught my eye. Being able to have your one skill go in there and make sure they don't score and please just put an end to what I'm seeing out there is a really good thing for a young kid to have. Go ahead, Jack. Sorry.
No, you're good. That's your guy. I'll let you go. I like Springer too, maybe not as much as Sam, but
He's joined the fan
Springer's
club.
cool. He's fine. Springer's cool, man. I'm a fan. I think he's a nice guy. Obviously he's young, so he's got plenty of room to grow. I think the shot has looked better since he joined the Celtics. I don't know. It's just tough for me to envision a world where he gets a ton of minutes this year with Derrick White, Payton Pritchard, Jrue Holiday ahead of him. But I do think he'll be right in the next group. Like I think him and Jay Walsh have sort of separated themselves as the after the top 10 or however you want to shake out like the Tillman Cated Cornet minutes. Like I kind of lump those guys together. Like they're the next guard / wing duo that's gonna be like, all right, if we need O'Shea Brissett and Svi Mykhailiuk minutes, it feels like those two are just gonna kind of jump up and slide into that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Jack. I think that it's kind of been prevalent, and we saw in the preseason as well. Like I know a lot of people were talking about Walsh and how he stepped up and looked a lot better in the preseason so far compared to this year's summer league. And how I remember one clip from the first game where he like hesitated the three and then shot the three, but and I like that he like obviously didn't like that he hesitated, but at least took the shot and made it and felt confident in that. And I think if we see this confidence kind of instilling in Walsh from obviously the disruptive summer league, obviously working through it, I think he's going to be more than hungry and ready to kind of make an impact or try to get that role to fill in for Brissett.
It's open, that's for sure. And again, he looked pretty comfortable, especially in the opener in the preseason. 2 of 6 from 3, 33% isn't really like the worst thing ever when you consider what it could be. I mean, O'Shea shot probably a little less than that last year. I don't know off the top of my head what his numbers were. He definitely didn't take 6 a game. If he's willing to be a defender off the bench and try and bring energy, there could be spot minutes for him for sure. And that's probably the next step ahead for him, is to get comfortable playing against bigger bodies. He had to put on muscle too. Anytime he got in the game last year, he looked pretty skinny, much like Drew Peterson does. Not quite to that degree, but both of those guys need to put on just a little bit more weight, and they could be really serviceable. Peterson's looked surprisingly really good in this preseason in the minutes he's played.
I was going to say,
Yep.
he has
He's
shocked me as well.
interesting. It's weird with Peterson because it feels like he's going to play too similar a role with Hauser, and there's so many guys at his general position that might be a step ahead of him. Like I feel like Jordan Walsh should take priority in terms of development. I feel like even Baylor Scheierman now, who they brought in, should take his place in terms of development. But Peterson's got all the skills, man. He can put the ball on the floor. He can shoot it. He can play make a little bit. You worry about the defense because he is just a stick, but as a whole, like he's a good player, and you can see why they picked him up in a two-way. I'm interested to see what year 2 looks like for him. It feels like it's gonna be a lot of main, especially because he's on a two-way. But I mean, they got him for a reason, and they signed him mid-season for a reason. So I'm curious.
I feel like with the two-way guys, most obviously since we know like from last season, seeing Jordan Walsh being on that full-term deal, but obviously not playing like a majority of minutes with the Celtics team, I feel like a lot of Celtics fans kind of going into this year, including myself, kind of realize that maybe Baylor is going to be priority in Maine. Some of those two-way guys like Watson, like J.D. Davison, like Drew Peterson are going to be in Maine. But I think it's also great for that as well because we saw that Maine Celtics obviously make the finals last year. I know Sam was at the game covering it there, but that was like super cool to actually like be there and have that experience and just to like have those young guys like see like we can still compete for an NBA championship but also a G League championship. And I also think that just like makes them want to be like more hungry and fight more for the Celtics organization and kind of work their way up like Sam Hauser.
Yeah, the way it went down was actually kind of funny because it almost resembled Game 7 against Miami the year before, where you come back home and it feels like you're about to win and have this monumental accomplishment. For the Celtics, it would have been coming back from 3-0 down. For Maine, it would have been just winning. And Jordan Walsh comes out very early in the game and hurts his ankle, and he just had to come out, never was able to really get going. In that game, Drew Peterson, I thought, was really the guy that really tried to galvanize everybody. They never really got within 12, but the energy in the expo up in Portland was excellent that night. I got to credit the people up there. They did not lose any of their juice, even when it was looking bleak. I was excited to be there. It was really cool to be there for such a marquee game. And the best part about it was really that you could take away from that those guys in the G League were able to grow. And that's what the purpose is. As much as it would have been great for them to win and Maine's never won, the real goal is J.D. Davison needs to play in big games. Drew Peterson needs to play in big games. Jordan Walsh needs to play in big games. They need to be comfortable with big spots. And they didn't do a great job, but they won the first game of the series and they competed, even when it looked like it was dead. So credit to them.
Got a comment.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Jack.
yeah. I mean, sorry.
Sorry. Got a comment from Bryson, our Thunder Digest creator, saying that don't forget to mention that it was the OKC Blue that won. So you got to give him his credit for it, where it is. But you can go, Jackson.
It was.
Jemias Ramsey,
no.
killer.
It's true. I mean, I went up to Maine a couple of years ago. I think the Celtics have done such a good job of sort of creating it into effectively just like an MLB minor league system in where it's like we are not treating this as its separate entity. Like a lot of teams you see, okay, this is our G League, this is our NBA team. Like the only connection we're gonna have is the two-way players. I feel like the Celtics have gone past that. Like obviously Cornette and Hauser, they were on two ways, but you look at other guys like Jordan Walsh is spending a lot of time there. You see Drew Peterson, JD Davison also on two ways, but they spent a lot of time there. Nemi spent a lot of time there when he was on a two way, but even when he wasn't on a two way, he was spending time there. Like they're using it as we are going to build this. We are going to look for talent in our G League rather than just treating it as a separate entity from the team. And I think that's a reason that they're going to be able to create this sustained success past just like, oh, we won one championship, we're done now.
I agree. And even to kind of further that comment, Jack, you even see with a player like that was on the squad last year and DJ Stewart, who also, went on to Chicago's Summer League this year and kind of earned himself a two-way spot. And that's a player that, I know we have a logged jam system of guards, but he was a young, enticing piece on that main Celtics team that a lot of people were saying, like, oh, could he possibly, maybe get a two-way spot in the future? Could he be a vital piece for development? So even players that, have left, even Kyler Kelly as well, I believe. He went to the Lakers, I believe. But he was another like young, enticing piece. Just having those other guys around them, like you said, is just like huge for the development of Maine.
Yeah, Kelly, unfortunately, kind of got like Wally pipped by Nemi, except he didn't get hurt. Nemi just kind of got designated to Maine a couple times, and Kelly came out of the rotation, but he was a good player for them. He was blocking a lot of shots, and he gave them really good energy when he would get into the games. He's an energy guy. He's almost like a great value Rob Williams, but like really, really great value off the real discount clearance rack. But he's got the skill set. He's an exciting guy, and they really do a great job of developing talent. Would like to see a little bit more from JD Davison before they let him go or whatever, but they are definitely turning things around, like Jack said.
For sure.
Kyler Kelly was good, man. It just felt like he was just not good enough to usurp anybody in the rotation. But I mean, he's a great defender. He made the All G League defense team. Like you can just tell he positions himself really well. Like that's the reason they like Luke Cornett. Luke Cornett is always in the right spot. Kyler Kelly came in as somebody who was kind of like up and down, and he molded himself into this really good player. I hope he sticks somewhere. I think he's got the talent. He's just like, if he was like 21, people would be fine. But how he's already 20. Like if he's around now, how much of a chance are you willing to get him? So it seems tough, but he's a good player. I really like Kyler Kelly a lot.
Yeah, he was a really, really good shot blocker, I know, for that team. And another player as well, I know that's not on the team, was Brandon Slater. We had him on the channel a couple months ago, but he was
Nice.
also a player that, like, I saw play at Seton Hall when I was there when he played for Nova, and he was just like trollable killer, just like efficiency, just making sure that he's going to do the right play. He's kind of one of those players that I felt like was kind of like a do-it-all type of guy, kind of helping and contributing in that way, and that's something that I really like too. I don't know off the top of my head where he's, and I think for the
He got
Do you know
traded
Jack?
for Skapinsev. He was in the trade. They
Oh,
sent them
he
out.
was? Oh, okay.
It was him and I know what it was. Hold up. I can find this Skapinsev
G League trades are crazy.
trade.
Yeah.
It was somebody else I know too. Joe Wieskamp. Him and
Oh,
Joe
Joe
Wieskamp got
Wieskamp,
sent to
yes.
Westchester for Skapinsev.
Okay, because I know that like with the trades, like they did one for Tony Snell too or something like that, and they got like the renounced rights for like Check
Check
Diallo.
Diallo.
But doesn't Check Diallo play? I saw like Check Diallo plays in like the Malian basketball league or something like that. That was like the last
Yeah, I
time he
don't
played, so I was
I
just
don't
like,
know.
I don't know. But let's dive in. Let's get into some preseason talk. I know we've kind of already glossed over it a little bit here, but made it part of the stream today is to kind of go over the preseason standouts. So we're going to go over who's standing out and who does not. And I got some images popped up for us. So we're going to switch the camera if it works. There we go. We're all here. And let's get into it. So I got all of these players ranked by courtesy of Spot Track, grouped up, and we can kind of just go over said players. I know it's a little small, I'm sorry, but I can kind of see and kind of go over. But we got centers, forwards, and guards. Obviously, with like the starters and stuff, we kind of know what we expect. I don't think that we really need to like tackle any of those guys unless you guys really want to, but kind of going in depth and kind of talking about some of the untapped potential players for this Celtics team. We already kind of talked about Jaden Springer already. If you guys want to talk some more about him, is there anything else that we have to mention about Springer that we've liked so far from the Summer League, G League, preseason?
Oh, you said
Personally,
your guy.
that's my guy. I would like to see a little bit more from him. I think we're all trending in the main direction, the right direction with that, though, right? Game one, I was very bummed. Jack and I loaded up the StreamYard. We hopped in, and I was like, man, I don't want to talk about him today. I don't want to talk about him. And it was just like a lot of forced shots, and he looked a little bit like he was in his head, and it was different than the last game he'd played, which is in Summer League. Game 2, he looked far more engaged. He was picking up guys before half court. He was deflecting passes. He made a catch and shoot 3, which was great to see. He still doesn't look overly comfortable shooting him off the dribble, but luckily that's not really what they're going to ask him to do. He got himself to the free throw line. There was a lot to see and a lot to like in game 2. Over the weekend, I would imagine we're going to see less and less of the starters, especially with it being a back-to-back. So that's where the real opportunity is going to come for him. And this is a big spot. He is on that contract year like we talked about earlier. How much opportunities he get with the Celtics? Jack doesn't think a lot. I don't think it's going to be too much either, unless somebody gets hurt, which none of us want to see. He has to prove himself. And to be able to have the opportunity to prove himself, he has to earn it now. Not when the season. He doesn't have to prey on luck. He needs to go out there and be like, you are going to have to play me.
Yeah, he kind of has to like enforce the fact that he needs to be played. Kind of how when we saw him in the summer league, when people were like, "Oh, this guy's way too good to be here." That's how he has to kind of look with those guys that he's competing for that last roster
Correct.
spot. I feel like that's kind of the same.
Yeah, Springer has the tools. Like he's a great defender, and I think that's always the best place to start. Work there, work backwards. He's a fine playmaker, can handle the ball a little bit. You saw that in the summer league. I think it's just a matter of offensive consistency at this point. Like he'll get in the rotation because of his defense, but if he's not able to hit consistent threes, and he probably won't stay there. I'm not saying he won't, but it just with such a tough road to get in the rotation from the jump, it's just hard for me to see him playing consistently over like a Payton Pritchard or anybody like that. And I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think he'll get his chances. I think he'll get his opportunities, and you never know if he gets in, plays O'Shea Brissett minutes, and he's actually hitting his threes. Maybe he gets another chance and another chance, and it snowballs. But if we're like really looking past that and way into the future, at the same time, like how do they resign him? Like they're not going to be able to keep their top 5 guys next 3 years, let alone a Jaden Springer contract because have to look at it, fortunately, yeah, as cynical as it may is, like if he doesn't play well, he's not going to play in the Celtics rotation. They probably won't bring back. But if he does play well, somebody else will probably give him a deal so big that the Celtics can't match it. And so it's just this awkward spot for Springer. So unless he signs like a Tillman deal where he's like, yeah, I'll come back on a minimum for a couple of years, I just don't know how realistic it is that he's on the team past this year.
What
I
if he
could,
catches Chris Paul and gets addicted to winning?
Yeah.
I think Chris Paul is going to be pretty nice with the Spurs. I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't think they're going to be a playoff team or anything like that. But I think it will be nice. Like,
It was funny today. Someone at my job, like I was talking to him for like one of the first times, he kind of knew. He was like, "Oh, like you like basketball?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like asking me about a bunch of different teams, and like he was like talking like I was like Thunder, Timberwolves, Nuggets. Like he asked who I thought would win the West. He was like, "What do you think of the Spurs?" I was like, "Yeah, I don't think so, not yet."
yeah, the maybe the ESPN clickbait things on Wemby trying to be this big star is messing with the casual mind of over here protecting Wemby's future.
He might be ready though. Really, like he took
He,
a real jump like in the second half of the season where he was really affecting the game. And if you watch the Olympics, like teams were terrified to go in the paint against Wemby.
I think he's going to be good. I think that the Spurs are definitely pushing that like moment. I just think that in the West, there like you were saying, there's just too many stacked teams, and there's a lot of
Correct.
like
Absolutely.
young. How I kind of view it, there's a lot of young, hungry teams, kind of like the Grizzlies and the Rockets, teams like that. And then there's obviously teams that are a little bit older, like the Warriors and the Lakers and the Clippers. So it's kind of like weird how you can kind of judge them because you don't necessarily know if like the Rockets team is going to all gel together or if one of those like veteran teams is just all going to click.
It's tough, man. I like the Spurs a lot. I think if Wemby's good enough, they'll have a chance to make the playoffs. It's just like you said, it's tough with how much talent there is. Like you look at teams that could potentially fall off, and the list is short. Like I think the Clippers might fall off a little, but even that, like they have 2 close to all-star caliber players plus some okay role players. Like there's just not that many bad teams out west. Everyone's trying to win. I think the Kings got better. I think the Suns got better. I think the Mavs got better. I think the Thunder got better. I think the Grizzlies are going to just be better by a product of their situation. Like it's just hard. I think the Rockets got better if you want to go that deep. It's just tough to find a space for them. The Pelicans got better. Like it's just everyone just wants to win in the West, and it makes it impossible. And I'm very happy the Celtics are not in the West.
Yeah, I agree. I'm doing my power rankings for my other channel, and it is impossible to try to like figure out where I'm gonna put people and how to like judge them by like ranking the whole teams because it's just like all these teams could just be all the same, like equal value. I feel like they all could just come in at like 6th place in the West.
Ours are coming up. We're gonna have to do our predictions soon, and every year we seem to nail it. I don't know.
With the East, it's a little bit easier. I feel like. With the East, there's like a concrete 8. I feel like that are expected to be there. I feel like maybe around the play-in there's some discussion if you feel confident in a Hornets or a Hawks or a Bulls or a Raptors. But besides that, it's pretty like besides just like where you put the Bucks compared to the Magic is just a little different or something like that.
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's get into some more of these players talking about this stuff. Let's look. We discussed Payton Pritchard a little bit. I know you guys were talking about that. What are you guys' thoughts on Payton Pritchard so far in the preseason? I know he's already had a buzzer beater once again. The Celtics fans were going crazy for that. And in the first game, he was on fire from 3-point range.
Good, Jack.
Pritchard's real good, man. I think they should give him more responsibilities this season. I don't know if he'll get the minutes, but I think he could be a 6-man of the year guy if he plays enough. And I don't see any reason that he shouldn't play that many minutes. Like I think Pritchard could easily average 15 for this Celtics team if they let him play enough. Like I think Jrue Holiday scoring and shots might go down a little bit this year, or maybe not might, but I think if you take his shots away a little bit, you account for the fact that like Porziņģis shots have to go somewhere because he's just not going to play a lot in the first half of the season. Maybe Horford takes a few more shots, like Tatum and Brown, even like I just think there is room for Pritchard to do more and have more responsibilities with the ball in his hands and as a scorer for this team, because I think he has the talent. I think he can make big shots. I think he can take big shots. He can create big shots for himself and for others. I'm really high on Pritchard. I think he deserves more chances with the ball in his hands. And I mean, you saw it in the preseason game, even when he was playing like with some of the bench guys, he's always shown that. And I don't think there's a reason that he couldn't do that with guys like Tatum and Brown and Derrick White and everybody else in the game.
Yeah, and if nothing else, he can fit with that team just by being ready to shoot when he's open, much like someone like Jrue Holiday does or Derrick White when Tatum and Brown are in the game. It's very possible for him to fit. He has enough intensity where I trust him to at least try and defend. He doesn't feel the same way that a lot of small guards do in that respect. Not to say he doesn't ever get taken advantage of, he absolutely does. But he has far more defensive ability than a lot of guys his size do, which is a really great thing to see. I think with Pritchard, one thing we should all always be excited about with him is he's got a weird psychopath work ethic. Not in like the same weird way Joe Mazzulla is a psycho, but just like Peyton Pritchard's like a basketball robot. Like that's what he has. That's his thing. That's all he does. And he's going to continue to get better. He talked about it a little bit after that opening onslaught he put on the Nuggets. And he was like, listen, I just been working and I want to make my offensive game complete and I want to be able to defend and learn how to take charges. Like we might see a little bit of a step up from him this year. I don't know how much opportunity he's going to have to take a full step, but if he's able to be in that 6-man of the year race discussion, whatever you want to call it, that's a win for the Celtics. It's a win for him. He's on that contract for what, 4 more years on $8 million a year? Not bad at all.
No, I agree. I think I was a little too early on my Peyton Pritchard 6-man of the year because last year I was having him in those conversations after that preseason where he was on fire. And we've already seen him come off to that hot start. And one thing about Pritchard that I personally really like is we've seen him kind of learn and grow at all aspects of his game throughout the year. I know last year we kind of saw in the second half of the season, kind of getting into the playoffs, him driving to the rack more, being able to score at the rim, and other teams like the Mavericks having to defend him at the rim, which was nice. And he's always been, like you said, like basketball is his thing. So he's always like a hard worker. He's a gritty rebounder. He's always going to be on the boards, which I love as well. But even we saw in the preseason today, him looking better off the pick and roll and the passing and stuff like that. He is just looking like he's just ascending every year, like as obvious he should be. And I know last year, like Jake Eisenberg, I know Noah Dalzell, they were all talking about him possibly being like a starter in the league and possibly being up to that. And I agree with them. I think that he could, get to that level. This year, I think he could probably start on the Nets team. There's an abundance of teams that I think he could, live that expectation to. So having him on that $8 million contract, I agree, Sam, is a steal.
Noah might have said something a little bit more wild than starter. From what I remember,
all-star.
She might have got killed on Twitter by everybody for a little while.
That was insane. No, I do like. I would have to like go through, but I think there are a lot of teams, maybe not a lot of teams, because the point guard position I would argue is the most widespread talented in the league, just in terms of like depth. Maybe not top end talent, but I think there are teams that would love to have Payton Pritchard as their starter, or at the very least as their sixth man. So, like, I think he could play 30 minutes a game for so many teams around the league. And the only reason he hasn't come close is because he's on the best team in basketball. So, I don't know. I'm high on Payton Pritchard. I know he is not like everyone thinks of him as like this young guy. He's like 26 now, so he is getting a little bit older in terms of NBA experience. But man, I think this could be a huge year for Pritchard.
There's also something to be said about, like, you just think about the way the contracts line up, like Jrue Holiday, Derrick White. When Pritchard's contract's up, maybe he's in line to stick around again, even though he's on a discount now. Like, you could really get behind some Payton Pritchard stock if you want and be like, listen, this guy needs to keep improving for the Celtics to be competitive down the line. So I would absolutely love to see him to keep play better. Like, he looks great. He looks great in the preseason. I don't want to get too high on it because last year, like you mentioned, like, we all got fooled. We were like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, I definitely was in that full group. And then obviously playoff time, once it came back around, second half of the season, he started to wake back up again. And I want to talk about that point about Pritchard kind of starting because I think that is a plausible cause. I remember on draft night, there was reports of coming from the Celtics that they hadn't felt this confident in drafting a point guard since Rajon Rondo with selecting Payton Pritchard. So from the front office throughout the whole organization with Brad being there, they've always believed in Pritchard. They've always had this high expectation of him in believing in him. So like you were saying, if those players like Holiday and White are to come off those contracts and Pritchard is still available to kind of get a little bit of a pay raise, if they have some more flexibility, if he's shown that he can be the starter, I think he definitely deserves it.
For sure. You probably won't see him start many games this year unless Jrue Holiday is out. But I don't know. I hope
Let
I'm
them
right
clinch
because
that one seed again.
Yeah.
Watch
right.
out, Sacramento Kings.
That's what I'm like. Watch those Wizards and Pistons games in March and April where him and Scheierman and Walsh can just have some fun. Those are the best games. I remember last year the Hauser, like every single week he was just getting a new career high, new career high, new career high. I was like, oh, this is awesome. This must be a great boost for Hauser over here.
100%.
Go ahead.
No. I'm just like thinking of. I was like internally trying to think of how many teams Hauser and Pritchard would start on. And I was just trying to tally in my head. Sorry, you're good.
No, you're good. You're good. All right. So let's look at some more guards at this list. We have Scheierman listed as a guard here. Would you guys classify him as a guard?
I
I feel like
guess
he's
so.
like a
Yeah, maybe like a bigger
tweener.
guard wing. Yeah.
Because I kind of
He
viewed him
has
as
guard
like
skills.
I viewed him as like
Definitely
a
looks
tweener
around.
of Pritchard and Hauser, kind of like a Svi Mykhailiuk if he was a combination of both. But what are your thoughts on Scheierman? I know we kind of went into a little bit, had a good summer league, hasn't had the greatest preseason so far. Are we selling our stock on Scheierman, or we just think it's the yips a little bit?
I did a article on him for Celtics blog this week, and basically I just went in and was like, I think he has the yips, like, and that's okay. I don't think it's permanent. I think he's going from being someone who has played the majority of the minutes in every game he's ever played in basketball to sitting on the bench waiting till the fourth quarter to make your professional debut in a real game, and then having to just still take very spotty shots, like you coming in tight windows where it's like I have to shoot right now, and there's nerves that are going to go along with that. He just looks nervous to me. I don't think he looks bad. I think he's done some good things. There was a play that Adam Taylor tweeted out where Scheierman makes a read and actually makes a fake pass to get the defender to commit to the opposite side of the paint so he can find Tillman open in the corner for a 3-point look. It didn't go in, but still a good read, still did a good job of manipulating the defense. And like, that's the kind of things that Brad Stevens drafted him for. Brad Stevens went after the after the draft at the press conference was like, this guy's a winning player. So is Watson. Like, we drafted them because we think that they can contribute and fit in with this team. And that's going to be a big thing going forward. And as far as like what he's doing the preseason, Carson Edwards was lighting the world on fire. And did we see a Carson Edwards jersey somewhere, Jack? Oh, I was at a casino and I saw somebody in a Carson Edwards jersey randomly, like on a weekend in February or something like that.
I saw one at a train station once a couple of years ago. It's just Carson Edwards. No, I think Scheierman's just got the yips, man. I think it's just a case of he is in a slump. He is overthinking things. I think he's got all the tools to be a good offensive player. I think his defense is maybe a little underrated at this point, but it still obviously has some work somewhere to go. But I think in drafting 2 older players, the Celtics knew what they were doing. They had guys that they thought could contribute right away or close to right away, and I think that's what you'll see from Scheierman. I think he's just in a little rough patch.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I saw Scheierman play at Creighton, well at Seton Hall with Creighton, so I saw like Cockburn and all those guys, and he just like fit right into the system. I know he obviously went to South Dakota State previous, was working and playing there with the Jackrabbits, but he's just a perfect shooter. But not just that, like you guys were saying, like hustle rebounder. We saw him in the summer league fight into diving into the stands in that Lakers game, getting the rebound. I assume you both were obviously in attendance at that game, but that's
Oh,
just
I
like
was
that's just
watching
cool to
Bronny.
see, just to watch your Ronnie. That could be a whole episode if we wanted to talk about him. But just seeing him play and just like seeing him put that hustle and that effort when you know, like, especially to like that he's not in line to be a guy like immediately inserted, and it just like makes you understand that like Brad Stevens does his job so well in finding the right players for this Celtics team, because we all know the Celtic culture. We all are from Massachusetts. We all understand like what you are looking for in the Celtics team, what we want our players to do. And I think bringing in Scheierman is just another addition to that.
Yeah, I just think it goes into the CBA stuff too, where I mean, we talked a little bit about Lonnie Walker, and maybe we'll talk about him in a bit, so maybe you could transition. But the new CBA is really restricting teams, and they're trying to get ahead of it by drafting guys. Because if they draft guys, and they let's say the Celtics really hit on Shireman, they have that guy under team control for at least 8, well, at least 4 seasons, and then probably 5 at the bare minimum, because they can match whatever deal he signs. They really want to keep him. That's the most sustainable way to do it, instead of signing somebody like Lonnie Walker on a prove it deal and then he does well and then you're like, oh man, we have to pay him now. Same could be said for these second round picks. That's why teams are stockpiling. Last year after the finals or before the finals, Denver trades and gets an extra first round pick so they can start picking guys so they don't have to pay people. That's what teams are doing now. So these guys are even more important.
And we even saw with the Celtics last year too, with Jordan Walsh just trading back and back and back out of that first round to get additional draft capital, and they used
That
that
was
capital
awful.
to get to get Tillman and to get Springer with those picks. So it was also beneficial in helping out us do moves in the midseason.
Two of us were
Yeah,
doing the draft stream, and it was the hottest day ever, and we had to keep prolonging the stream because they would just not make the pick.
it was painful.
I
That was
remember
painful.
I turned off my notifications and I would just like be like, "Damn, we're trading the pick again."
It was bad. It was not a fun night.
All right, let's dive into some more players here as well in this guard position. We can kind of finish out these guards when looking at them, because the rest of the guys are basically Exhibit 10 guys that, or two-way guys that we've seen some solid stuff with. So obviously Lonnie Walker, Jay Scrubb, who has yet to play for the Celtics yet in any action just because he was just signed yesterday, Ron Harper Jr., and JD Davison. So we've seen some of the likes of JD Davison getting some increased run, looking good from the summer league. Lonnie Walker came in with a lot of hype from this team, obviously, from playing in the NBA, bringing it on Exhibit 10, and a lot of Celtics fans had wanted from past years. And Ron Harper Jr., also from the Summer League as well. Which one is your favorite out of these guys? Who do you guys really look forward? Do you think any of these guys are going to be sticking with Maine and staying with the team, or do you think they'll go elsewhere?
Go ahead, Jay.
I feel like at least a few of them will stay in Maine. Obviously, JD Davison's in our 2-way, so he'll be there. I feel like at this point, probably all 3 of them. I think Walker, Scrubb, and Harper would be in Maine unless Walker gets a contract with another team or something like that. I think Scrubb will definitely be in Maine. I think Harper probably will be in Maine. He's been with the team since summer league and up to now, so it would make sense for him to play for the Maine Celtics unless he decides to go overseas. I'm honestly, weirdly enough, the highest on Jay Scrubb probably out of all these guys. I think Lonnie Walker's a fine player. I said it when they signed him, and I got killed for it in the comments, but I still think he's a bit too much of a ISO player. I mean, he stepped in the preseason game for 2 minutes, and the first thing he did was chuck up 3 shots. Like, I get it, but it just doesn't seem like he is in the mindset of let me play pass first Celtics all around whatever basketball. It seems like he is. I'm a bucket. I want to be a bucket. That's fine. And there's spots for guys like that around the league. You see a Malik Monk, you see a Cam Thomas. Like, you've got players like that, but this isn't the team for that type of player. And I feel like he's almost a little bit too much like that. I think Jay Scrubb can be like that a little bit. He almost strikes me as a super athlete who you could probably develop him a little bit on defense. He looked pretty good in summer league. Maybe he falls under the category too because he has always been that type of score first player. But Ron Harper is fine, but he doesn't really show me too. He hasn't really shown too much. J.D. Davison's been a two-way, so I think obviously like of the four, I would choose him just because I think he has shown the most and he's been with the Celtics the longest. But I don't know. I would surprise me if any of these four guys make the 15-man roster next season.
Yeah, it's starting to feel more and more like they just don't want to pay anybody. They're kind of past that. Wick has opened the checkbook enough, and with the sale going on, I don't think they need to cough up any more money. I'm still intrigued by Lonnie Walker. I don't know exactly what they're going to ask of him, especially in these games. Like we talked about Pritchard getting more minutes when the starters are out, or Jaden Springer. Like Lonnie Walker getting more minutes is not going to help his case for this team. He might make some baskets and look good, but at the same time, like you're not really going to get a look at him doing what he would actually do if he was on the Celtics. And we haven't even gotten to see that in the two games. He's been a ball handler. He has just kind of taken over and created shots for himself and hit the back of the rim. And it's tough. It's disappointing. It would be real cool if JD would take a jump. It feels like it's been forever and we're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And it hasn't really come yet. He's a good distributor in Maine. Anytime he plays with the Celtics, feels like he turns the ball over a little bit too much. For him to take the next step, it's going to be 3-point shooting for sure. Ron Harper, we haven't even gotten to see yet. We saw him in Summer League and he was fine. And Jay Scrubb is really the story to root for because we talked about it like he was like probably weeks away from his dream and then unfortunately he hurts himself. We'll see. I will say this. I think Bobby Manning was saying that Jay Scrubb is not expected to play in the preseason. So if you're waiting for that, you're going to be disappointed. He's going to be playing in Maine though. So it's an exciting group to see play up there for sure.
I definitely agree. I'm definitely gonna have to take some trips up to Maine to catch this team at least once or twice to be able to just like watch it and kind of get that experience. I've never been to their center before, but I definitely want to be able to do that, especially with this Maine Celtics team being good. But I think you guys kind of hit it on the nail. JD Davidson, kind of talking about him, I think he's really solid. The one question though is just will he get an opportunity? I think with the Celtics, like he's good enough, but how we kind of similarly talked about with Springer, it's just kind of being in that log jammed group of guards behind Pritchard, behind Holiday, behind Derrick White. It's a little bit harder for him to kind of get into there. And then kind of talking about the other players as well, I agree. Lonnie Walker, Jack, I would say that I was very high on Lonnie Walker coming in here, like basically every Celtics fan on Twitter, as you guys know. And unfortunately, it just hasn't looked great. And I'm very shocked. I thought that a player like him, who's obviously had some ample time, ample minutes in the NBA, being on an Exhibit 10, obviously with the new CBA restrictions, is required. But I thought it was a little bit of a slap on the wrist, a slap on the face cross for him, and I think he deserved a little bit more. And I don't know. He's not really proven it. Maybe he can work his way up with Maine. I know from your guys reporting, he's really, really bought into going to Maine, kind of being in Maine as well. So he wants to, work his way up. He understands the work and the grind. And we've seen his posts on social media and stuff like that where he's talked about it. And then Jay Scrubb as a player that I'm really high on. He's my birthday twin. We share the exact same birthday, date, year, month, everything. So I really, really love him.
Nice.
And I'm really, really high on him. I remember being in Italy watching the summer league last season, watching him play, and he was like JD Davidson and Jordan Walsh, the third, if not second best player on that team. They were the top three guys, and for him to be able to rehab and work with this team, I think is really solid. And I'm excited to see what opportunity he gets in Maine because I think that since he was already on that two-way contract, he was expecting to be a Maine in general. But if he comes out and can average 14, which he was during the summer league last year, I think that could be a huge difference for the Maine Celtics and even for his career trajectory as well.
For sure. I think they're all talented players. I think Lonnie Walker definitely deserves to be, on a standard deal, but I just don't know if the Celtics are the best fit in terms of team.
Yeah,
I think
agree.
the G League just really makes great opportunities for these guys. And last year was a great example of that. Like it felt like Nemi got some good confidence playing with Maine, and he was able to kind of parlay that into playing some good minutes with the Celtics at times. So it's really good for these guys just to get run anywhere because you're not going to really learn a lot by sitting and watching Celtics. I mean, you will learn because they are very good, but you're not going to really gain much experience by sitting on the bench.
Exactly. I agree. All right, we can dive in onto these wings now, kind of looking at those. We'll kind of pick this up. Like we said, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum. Don't really need to discuss them. Kristaps Porziņģis also listed as a wing here as well. Did not know if you guys knew that, but we can put that in
Clearly a
here.
wing.
Yeah, clearly. But
Him and Wemby.
yeah, but we got Sam Hauser we obviously have Jordan Walsh and we have Anton Watson. We've kind of talked about Jordan Walsh a little bit as well, but if there's anything you'd like to add on that and talking about Sam Hauser, Anton Watson, I know Watson looked really nice in the Summer League. Another player that Celtics fans were really intrigued on with getting that two-way contract. Is there anything that you guys really like with him or stands out with him?
Just plays the right way. That's really it. Like he's really great at putting himself in spots to succeed. He's a good cutter without the ball. He crashes the offensive glass. He just has like a good sense of the game. And you see that on defense too. He's a guy that can guard the perimeter. His first game against Miami had a nice chase down, not chase down, but he got beat off the dribble and blocked Jaime Jaquez off the glass. And that's no joke because that's a real playoff starter on a Miami Heat team. So that's pretty good for your first ever professional inkling of basketball. It's pretty nice. I'd like to get more of a look at him though. I don't think we've really got to see enough of him in the 2 games that they've played.
Yeah, I think Watson's a better defender than people give him credit for. I think he's super versatile. I think he can guard a bunch of positions. I think he can keep up with guards. I think he can guard big men. I think he's obviously best equipped to guard like forwards, slash centers, like that type of player. But um, he was confident shooting the three ball in Vegas, and that's something you really want to see from a player like him. It looks like he's got pretty good touch around the rim. Like Sam said, he just kind of plays the game the right way. All those 5-year college players are just sort of good at staying in position and doing everything they need to do, and that's the case with Anton Watson. They picked an older guy for a reason, him and Scheierman, and he might not play a ton this year, but I do think there's a world where he could play real minutes for the Celtics at some point in the next X amount of years.
Yeah, see, that's nice to know because personally, I didn't know much about Watson coming kind of into the draft. I don't really know. I wasn't like when the Celtics drafted him. I didn't know much of him, and then kind of watching the summer league, I've kind of got my little taste of him. But to know, I've heard the comparisons of an Al Horford possible replacement. I know that he is a very good switchable defender, being able to guard those forwards and bigs. And if his 3-point shot, I know, is probably the main point of concern, being able to be consistent. But if that can deliver, then he could definitely insert himself as a piece for the future. Lastly, we break
That's the important part.
exactly just being able to hit down those shots in the Mazzulla offense. You know what I mean? You got to be able to play Mazzulla ball. Lastly, we can break down the centers and look at these, and this is probably the most interesting group to kind of break down when looking at the preseason. Obviously, with Kristaps Porziņģis having his injury being out for an extended period of time, the Celtics are going to be starting the season without him. So they're going to have players step up. And with Al Horford obviously being older, we've seen some, and with him rushing on back-to-backs, other players are going to have to step up. That's why they brought back Luke Kornet. That's why they brought back Neemias Queta. That's why they brought back in Xavier Tillman. So obviously from seeing this, there was also some reports from Bobby Manning today as well that I saw talking about maybe Horford coming off the bench and kind of starting like that. Maybe some Luke Kornet starting in this system. What are your guys' thoughts on Luke Kornet?
Love him.
Hmm.
Jack, I'll let you do the ice cream. Perfect analogy.
Oh yeah, so when I compared Luke Cornett and Neemias Queta to ice cream on our stream, I said it's like going up to the window at the ice cream place, and you can either order the Luke Cornett or the Neemias Queta. And if you order the Luke Cornett, you get vanilla ice cream. It's always good, always solid. You know what you're gonna get. It's fine. It's not the best, but it is consistently like does what you need it to do. And if you order the Neemias Queta, you have a 50-50 coin flip of getting either a banana split sundae or spoiled milk ice cream. And there's no in between. There's no middle ground. It is either he comes in the game, he's a monster, he throws down a bunch of alley oops, he blocks shots, he sets good screens and that, or he commits 5 fouls in the first 3 seconds of the game and you have to pull. Like there's no between. Luke Cornett, vanilla ice cream. He's been great. He might even be cookie dough. I mean, with the way he's played in the first few games of the preseason, he looks really good. He looks like he can start. I know John Corrales asked today at practice, like, do you see a world where you keep Al coming off the bench to preserve him a little bit during the regular season? And he was like, we're open to whatever the season calls for. I don't think that's going to happen, but I wouldn't hate it if Luke Cornett gets extended minutes this year. He's looked really, really good. I think he's a lot better than people give him credit for. Neemias Queta is good too. I don't want to put a bad rep on his name. It's just you can still see the inklings of like a little bit of fouling too much, a little bit out of position, and you just never get that with Luke Cornett.
Luke Kornet has had all the vision. They're using him in the short roll. He's setting his teammates up for open threes, if I could speak. He looks great. He looks comfortable. And more importantly, looks comfortable with the starters. He can just fit right in. And I know some of the people I've like messaged with and everything say maybe it's best to bring him off the bench so he can connect those guys that way. That works too. But nonetheless, he's kind of showing us something that we didn't see from him before, and that's going to help him be a real asset for the Celtics this year. When he's been on the floor, the offenses look fantastic. In the preseason, we've seen some great ball movement. The threes didn't really drop in the first game. In the second game, they did, and they beat the brakes off of Denver. And Cornette's ball movement, initiation, setting the screen, rolling to the free throw line, and just being ready to make the read has been incredible.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that playmaking with inserting Luke Cornett because I saw in the first game it was just immaculate. Obviously, the shots weren't going in, but he is just a perfect big to kind of insert to work with these guys. And the Celtics playmaking in general in the preseason was just absolutely fantastic. But having Cornett doing that as well. Jack, I like your analogy you kind of had with the ice cream because I totally agree with Neemias Queta on that. The one issue that we've talked about Neemias Queta, because everybody on Celtics Digest loves Neemias Queta, the only issue that we've always talked about is just is he going to make the layup or is he going to get the offensive rebound because he missed the shot underneath the basket? Is his feet going to be sound? Is he going to be ready to go? And with Luke Cornett, he obviously has that stability in with the offense with Joe Mazzulla having that like familiarity with him, playing with him over these last couple of seasons and kind of just like trusting in him. So I understand why he gets the bigger role, But yeah, with Neemias Queta, it's either you're getting 10 and 10 in on the West Coast trip, or you're getting 3 fouls and 2 screens that are where his feet aren't set in 3 minutes.
He's
100%.
jumping into somebody in the paint.
The best is when he like me and Nick NBA when we broke our Neemias Queta video down, we looked at it, but when he had the jump ball versus Cleveland and he like early jumped by accident and they like had to redo the tip off again, and then he like actually caught it and threw it down. It's just like the little minute things are things that he has to learn. And I obviously think with the G League last year working there and kind of learning and developing, it's obviously gotten him better. But I think that there's still going to be some steps that he needs to work on to ensure himself to get that backup big spot.
For sure.
What do you guys think about Xavier Tillman? Personally, Xavier Tillman is my favorite Boston Celtic. I'm huge on Xavier Tillman. I know there's a lot of discourse about Xavier Tillman and shooting the threes. Coach, should he shoot it, should he not? But I was a big proponent in the Al Horford, Xavier Tillman look-alike combination. Put Al Horford in the gym all offseason with him. Let him shoot threes, lock the door, and Xavier Tillman will be the next version of Al Horford for the Boston Celtics. That three-point shot has already turned up.
You're speaking my language. I love Xavier Tillman. He is my guy. Just a great dude, but he's also just such a good basketball player. I think he is an completely underrated defender. I think he is elite at switching. I think he can guard guards. You saw him guard Luka. I think he can guard bigs. You saw him guard Anthony Davis a couple years ago in the playoffs. Like he can do everything on the defensive end. I think his playmaking is good as well. He doesn't get the chance to show it off. He did a couple nice times to Neemias Queta during the Abu Dhabi games. I think he obviously isn't the best rebounder in the world because he's a bit undersized, but you've seen him grind out some 10+ rebound games, especially when he was on the Grizzlies and he had to start in that Lakers series. He was getting 15 something rebound. Like he was a monster. And he was fighting down there. I think he's a good screen setter. I think he's a good, positioning. And I think the 3 ball's coming around. I just think he has all the tools to be, like you said, even if it's not fully Al Horford, like a B-tier version of Al Horford. And I mean, I think there is a real world where he becomes good enough where he can be the Celtics every night starter when Al Horford retires.
He's looked very comfortable shooting the 3 in the preseason. He's been quick with it. His form has always looked good. Jack and I went to, I don't remember who they were playing last year. We were at some game. The 2 of us were both there. We watched him warm up, and it was just like, wow, he really has good form. I don't know how his percentages are so low. And with being a member of the Celtics, you're just going to get all the open looks. So the door is wide open for Xavier Tillman to take a step this year, and the defensive versatility really is going to help him earn those extra minutes. We talk about the trio of big guys off the bench. It really feels like it's going to be a matchup based thing with Cornette just getting the nod more often than not because he is vanilla ice cream, and that's fine. But Tillman is someone you can really be excited about, and it's great that he opted to stick around this year because he didn't have to.
Yep, I for sure thought one of the bigs was going to be gone, regardless if it was Queta, Tillman, Cornette. I just kind of saw the writing on the wall, so being able to bring all of them back was huge. But Sam, I totally agree with you on Tillman and Jack. The switchability from Tillman on the defensive side is what makes him key, and his three-point shot is effective. Obviously, his rookie year, he had a really good three-point shot, but I think kind of the reasoning why his three-point shot might not have been the greatest is who he was playing with. He's playing with Jaren Jackson. He's playing with Steven Adams, not the best shooting bigs in the league. So having Xavier Tillman learning shooting from them might not be the best role model, but having players like Horford and Porziņģis who can clearly stretch the floor at all levels and can score from that level, having those be those mentors, I think is just, and being in the Mazzulla ball offense with also having open opportunities to where guys are going to slack off to where he's going to get the open shot. I think that just gives him more confidence and only gets him more opportunity to hit those shots.
It's time.
I love Tillman. I'm all in. I'm wholly all in, and I think people, like everyone, Kata, and I love Kata too, but Tillman and Cornette, I just think are like, I think they could be the best backup big room in the, like they're so unbelievably underrated, and I think the Celtics did a great job bringing them back.
I agree, and I think that they can play off of each other as well. I think that obviously Tillman can be utilized at that power forward position, I think, to a certain degree, and in some aspects playing with some of these bigs, and I think he's going to be, like you were saying, like might not be, the prototypical replacement for Al Horford, but could be that kind of filler-esque type of guy, or the guy that played a similar role to Horford for this team. Because I think putting those guys and those role players around Tatum, around Brown, is what's going to keep this Celtics team to succeed. We already know the formula. We already know what this team needs for it to compete, for it to win. So having these other guys around them is going to be huge, and ensuring that they keep those guys, or if those guys get older, finding those younger replacements is going to be big. Lastly, before we head off, before we sign off, let's dive into the last topic, which is what we're looking forward toward this weekend. So we'll go a little rapid style here, but I'll ask both of you guys, one person you are looking forward to this weekend, keeping your eye on for these preseason games. We're taking on the Sixers, we're taking on the Raptors. You probably know Horford, but who out of all those people, who are you keeping your eye on out of all these guys?
That's a tough one. I don't want to say Tillman, even though that's my answer because we just talked about him. So I'm going to say Jordan Walsh. I think with everything Joe Mazzulla has said about Jordan Walsh and how much he's confident in him and how much he thinks he's improved, I think there is a real chance that Jordan Walsh could get Mikhailu and or Brissett minutes this year, and maybe more. Like they invested a second-year exception contract into him, and that doesn't sound like much, but with a team that has, realistically a money crunch, like they have such an expensive roster, you need to hit on these lower level guys, and they need to be invested in Jordan Walsh. Obviously he had an up and down first season because he didn't play much. He didn't have a great summer league. He looked pretty good in the preseason. I think you should be looking at him to not necessarily like fill up the scoring column, but just like make the right plays. And if he's doing that, playing good defense, assisting well, everything like that, and just doing the right things on the floor, I think it'll be a great sign heading into the year.
Jaden Springer. You knew it was the answer. I mean, that's my guy. I'm excited to see hopefully more time from him this weekend, and maybe some opportunity to show himself and really prove what he's grown with this summer. Is he going to be comfortable shooting the three ball? I hope he gets some looks. We didn't get to see a ton of it. He only shot 3 in the second game. I don't know if he shot any in the first game. That's really going to be one of the big needle movers, is if he can make the 3. He has the defensive ability to play himself onto the floor. It's more about, maybe you don't want the guy shooting 22% from 3 to be eating minutes off the bench rather than Payton Pritchard. And if he makes threes, he's not going to take Pritchard's minutes, but he may carve out some sort of opportunity for himself somewhere else. And that's really what I want to see in the preseason.
Awesome, Matt. The guy I'm looking forward to, I think, this weekend is Baylor Scheierman, kind of getting over those yips, kind of seeing how he can kind of adjust to being in, the States playing basketball. Maybe that was a little bit of some differences. We'll have to wait and see. Before we sign off, I want to thank you guys so much for hopping on this call today and doing this live stream with me. It was really, really appreciative to have the boys from How About Them Celtics over here. So if you guys are subscribed to the channel, if you guys want to check out Jack and Sam on How About Them Celtics, if you don't follow them already, go check them out. Follow them on Twitter or X as well, Jack Simone and Sam LaFrance. Jack does his work for Hardwood Houdini. Sam does his writing for Celtics blog. Maybe next time, Sam, we can get a nice little chat with some Jersey Mikes on the call. Who knows?
We should.
we
can all get Jersey Mikes, and we can talk with our mouths full.
Yes, exactly. We can do no talking besides just Jersey Mike enjoying. But I want to say, once again, thank you guys so much for hopping on. Thank you to everybody that was in the chat hanging out with us today. We really do appreciate all of you guys here. Once from Celtics Digest, signing off with Bruce Veliz, Jack Simone, and Sam LaFrance.